Fingers crossed, we've gone live here, folks. Let us know you can hear us. Hello, hello. I wonder how many people on these live streams say hello, hello. It's like the thing on Zoom, everyone's saying, you're muted. Oh, you can't hear me.
No, I was impersonating Mick on Zoom. I can't hear
you. Oh, yeah. Okay, brilliant. Now, how are we doing, everyone? Can you hear us? How's that, everyone? Do you have us back on again? I hope that's working. Let us know. Great. So we have a really inspirational artist, creator, director, artist manager, art curator, and album producer with us today, Siân Darling. Thank you for letting us know you can hear us. Siân is based in Melbourne, Australia, and co-founded and curated Nasty Women Everywhere, an artistic action for women's rights. And in 2020, Siân founded the Museum of Inherited Memories and continues as senior creator. So my first question is, how do you juggle these many elements in the air, these many threads, these many spider legs?
Well, that incy spider. I think it's. I was thinking about it last night and just about how I don't get a lot of sleep and how I get woken up or kept awake by things that I need to do, and wondering how I got there from someone who just loved to really sit under a tree. Insomnia and obsessive to address. Thank you for letting me air that. But I think also all of the work that I do comes from the same place.
Yes.
And it comes wanting to do good work while I can, And by good work, I mean work hard, and work hard for something that means something.
Yes.
I've never been able to bear seeing suffering or injustice.
Yeah.
So, and that sings loud through, I guess, through humans and also through the natural world. So, I suppose the different things that I do, the filmmaking and the going between the different industries, even the social justice and music it all comes from the same place, which is wanting to address certain issues. And then all of the roles that I've accumulated through the various things I've done, I guess they're just the tools that the nearest and sharpest tools I could find.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm not, particularly passionate about music, but I think music is just, music can be a bit noisy sometimes. I much prefer to just be listening to the spaces between human impact. But but it's undeniably the most powerful implement I've worked with.
Really,
to feel connected and to help inspire empathy in people. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So for you, do you think music is that most important or most powerful form of communication creatively for you?
I see it really, it's perhaps not what stirs me the most, but of every area I've worked in and the majority of people, especially people en masse, crowded at a gig, there is at these moments thousands and thousands of people celebrating the same thing together, and it's by the same thing. It's it can be they're in the one place sort of getting along for a while, or there's obviously stories spanning eras and can be boundless. What can fit on? And can fit a story into a song and a story about anything. It feels kind of an infinite possibility. It depends. Songwriters can catch and deliver.
Yes.
I think music is just a place where a lot of different people from all walks can land and feel something.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, that you can land and connect with music no matter where you are. And sometimes, even if you don't understand the language, you can connect with it because you feel it in your cellular body. Two words that really came up reading about you were art and activism. That it seems that these two themes are really core for all your choices in your life, which is really inspiring to me, because you're not only so creatively connected, but to have a strong value in your work is really inspiring to me, because that gives everything so much more momentum. How does your approach differ when you're making a piece of art, to directing a documentary, to working on producing creative media, or to contributing to something that's very close to your heart and your values of activism? You said they come from the same place, but does your approach or your preparation differ in any way?
I don't. I mean, I have different tasks to do. There's the different practical preparation for the variety of things.
Yeah.
But it again, it comes from the same place. I want to work with people who I admire and who I either love or could potentially love, or at least like and admire. Work with people who and I'm thinking about, on a film set or in any type of collaboration, even in the human rights organisation, I want everyone to feel nurtured and connected to the subject and connected to the purpose of why they're there.
Yes.
So it does come to the values that have brought everyone to the place where we start working.
Yeah, yeah. When you began the process of producing Kev Carmody's tribute album, Cannot Buy My Soul, in 2020, was it a new process in the role of production, or was it really familiar to you because music is such at the heart of your creative centre?
It was, I've been working in the music industry more in artist management, where we are working on albums. So I had the familiarity with working with a record label and working with refining the process of getting a song recorded to getting an audience for it.
Yeah.
But the process of working with Uncle Kev Carmody on Cannot Buy My Soul was, the very first step was to develop my friendship or relationship with Uncle Kev.
Yeah.
And just to be sure that we trusted each other as best as could be, because they're his songs, and then I was taking his songs to other artists and asking them to cover them.
Wow.
And these are songs of Aboriginal truth-telling spanning 40 years in Australia, a very racist country.
Yes.
Especially to the First Nations people. So I think asking, and this would go across all the work that I do, but asking people to trust me with their stories is another common thread through all the work.
Wow. How does that process unfold for you to connect with someone and to feel that relationship of trust building between you? What does that look like?
It's how I enter things. I don't want to being in a conversation with someone where it feels insincere I feel like I'm sort of wasting time, not, if there's no sincerity. I'm getting more used to, it's taking practice, getting more used to getting through conversations that are more practical. Yeah. But not wanting to sit around in them. So the idea for that album would only have come about if, perhaps it could have crossed my mind, but I only will have said it or reached out to the record label to work with me on it if it was this genuine, if working with those people and on that subject was something I really wanted to do, somewhere I really wanted to be. Yes. And then once I made a decision, it absorbs me.
That's so incredible. And there were 42 songs that you organised, spoke with artists, created this body of work. That must have been, because we know what people are like, getting back to you, making decisions, arrangements. How did that process unfold for you? What were the steps you took? Because that to me seems like, wow, that's an odyssey, that body of work.
Well, we had 16 originals.
Right.
So we had 16 originals on the record and then the 16 covers of those songs. So
okay.
It wasn't as big as 42.
Okay.
So we have the originals sung by Uncle Kev, and then we have the covers that are done.
So you were only dealing with 17 nightmare artists. I speak for myself. Yeah.
We've I think working through more creative side of song choice, and making sure that people are connecting with the lyrics, or helping find a song that might be good for them, or speaking with Uncle Kev about who he thinks might be good for each song. That's obviously the more fun part. There weren't, most artists were really excited and professional and grateful to be on the record. Chasing up the same artist over and over, it does start to feel a little disparaging, or just, I think that we are, I mean, it sounds very cold of me, but we are all busy. We are all juggling a million things. So
completely.
When someone sort of says to me after months, I've been just flat out, but so have I. But and then adding to my already existing load is the sort of pressure of waiting for somebody, and then of course the insecurity in the wee hours. And have I done something to offend them? Why aren't they writing back to me? No, it's not personal. But I know that people go through all kinds of personal tunnels in their lives, and if surviving a certain patch is just not getting on into communication, that's it's not for me to judge. But it can get really disheartening. Having to face chest. But I also had worked with a great record label, and Helena Ho was working on, from EMI, was working on A&R. She uses great phrases like just circling back on this, just looping back on this.
I love that. Can I borrow it, please?
Looping back.
I sometimes use just checking back in, but I always feel a bit uncomfortable with myself, like I'm nagging someone. But looping back in is wonderful, because it's circular motion, feels a bit more gentle somehow.
There was another one that Helena used, pinging back.
Pinging, because that's a bit positive. I like that.
I'm here.
Hiya. I like that. I watched Courtney Barnett's video for Just For You again today. I've watched it before, but I really love that video, because it feels like you're in her inner sanctum. You see the dog, you see her room, you see her face so clean, you see it so direct, you feel like you're right in the room. Did you have a strong feeling for that video, approaching that for this project, for the Cannot Buy My Soul project?
Courtney Barnett is an incredible songwriter and musician, and a really beautiful person, and amazing to work with, just kind and patient, professional and beautiful. And the song, and also Courtney can sing with her guitar, her acoustic, but the last time I'd seen her play, she came on a tour with a tour that we organise every year, and just she's sort of commanding the stage and her guitar like I imagine Jimi Hendrix did. It's just shredding in the most spectacular way. So then, having seen her on that tour, and then having heard her version of Just For You, there was such tenderness and vulnerability that was matched with strength of conviction. So I want to have that simplicity and also capture that tenderness.
Incredible. Because it's...
I keep music videos as simple as possible. It's going to be one location. It's going to be one shot, one camera. Rarely can we keep it simple. So.
I think that's where I go wrong sometimes. I think, I want to keep the onlooker or the engager really incentivized to stay with this, but maybe that comes from some insecurity of, am I enough? Maybe if one believes I'm enough, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm communicating this piece of art or poem or whatever it may be, if I'm truly in the space of that, then I don't need to do anything else. It's communicating in its very essence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I think also as the artist who's on the screen, you're probably looking at your face, perhaps wincing, if not at least a bit sooner. I could stare at your face and listen to you speak, forever, perhaps with a few breaks in between. But, I could, so staring at your face, especially when you're singing or playing your harp, is the most captivating thing. We don't need all these quick cuts to other things. I don't need that relief, as a director or a bystander. But, yeah, so I think maybe you're right, we don't need all the cuts, but perhaps it's just for you to watch yourself back through the screen. It might be more for you. Also, cuts can be great. It depends on the rhythm of the song.
Right. I love the word you use, relief, because perhaps that is what some music creates. It's just like something you drink or you eat or you experience that relieves you from the challenges or the tension of life. So I love that word relief that you use, because I definitely relate to that. If I'm feeling like I'm having a bad day or I'm struggling or I'm wanting to lift myself up, I'll often go to music or food for that relief. So it's beautiful you use that word. I'm really interested to hear about where your commitment to human rights, the integrity of Australia's independent media as well, to correlate with that, and your social questioning began, because it's so fundamental in your very essence. Where did the seed get planted with this very strong value for you?
I think it can't be anywhere else than values that was, I suppose, demonstrated to me by my mother, who was a very hardworking social worker. She was also arrived in Australia as a refugee war, and I was raised in a house with my mother and with my grandmother, I was really brought up in the shadow of the Holocaust, and because no one was speaking about it, there was this tension. And I think as a young little girl who was quite attuned and observant to things around, there was this tension, but I didn't have the vocabulary to understand it. I just knew that there was some suffering there. And with that, it was naturally, the duality and everything. There was that, that brings this darkness, but there was also this sort of eternal resilience that was demonstrated as well. And I think that was really demonstrated by the women who raised me, knowing, I guess, perhaps learning what was behind my grandmother and looking at, she never spoke about it, complained about it. She just worked hard and with integrity, same as Mum. And I was attuned to suffering, I think. So when I see it in the world, in people or in the natural world, it's unbearable. So I just feel compelled to do something about it.
Yeah.
And with the independent human rights media you mentioned, I can see that that Rosalina Press has joined this feed, and such great timing that you say that, because I'm on the board of a independent human rights media outlet called Right Now, and Rosalina worked there for a long time with us as well. And it's also the relationships. It's meeting people and working with people like Rose, who we come I don't know, we might not come from the same place, but surely there's a sensibility and a commitment to wanting to address injustices in the world. So it's also the people we meet along the way, I think, that can reassure us that we're on the right track, because and by on the right track, it's just honouring, as I said, there's something that I find unbearable, so I have to do something about it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why music and art are sort of, why all my roles come from that place, because they're just the tools that are the sharpest and nearest tools to address the social environmental issues I want to address.
I love that. I was reading about Right Now Incan. I hadn't heard of this organisation for human rights in Australia. I hadn't heard of what you're doing before. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about Right Now. I know it's a fundamental issue worldwide, and it's wonderful to see these strong movements transforming our communities. I'd love to hear a bit more about that, if that's okay to share something.
Sure. Well, it's an independent human rights organisation, media organisation, that is really committed to publishing diverse voices and reflections on human rights issues. And it's not just through the written word, but we're also using arts to do that. And
yes,
a lot of the subjects can be issues of human rights and breaches of human rights and celebrations of human rights.
Yes.
They can be very long-held. They're issues that have been spanning a long time, and perhaps there's a reason that they haven't been fixed yet as well. And so using the arts to try to unpick and, again, try to connect people with their own sense of justice,
yes,
and inspire empathy really is, I think, a way to really address these kinds of issues.
How do you think you inspire empathy in someone who thinks differently to you? Because there's through the art form of film or music, because that's something I witness when I have a correlating opinion about, or someone's just, this is in a very minor way, but they've thrown a plastic bottle onto the floor and the bin's over there. I've been known to go up to some people and say, excuse me, I don't know if you meant to drop that bottle. I'm an irritating person, but the rubbish bin is over there. But, if you sit on your self-righteous chair, I've learned in my older age that perhaps there could be another way of understanding. Maybe they never were shown the value of not only respecting the space, but asking these questions. I'm coming from a privileged place where I have time and space in my own way to think about what are my values, how I think some people are just surviving in the very moment and it might not be a consideration, but how in film and music and in these movements you're so integral to, what are the ways in which we can inspire empathy in people who might be coming from a different side?
We should probably always assume that everyone's coming from a different place and give people that kind of, starting off with that kind of compassion.
Yeah.
That they might not know what you know, so don't, to not assume that.
Yeah.
And it's difficult when you want to sort of push your own agenda of what's pressing upon your own social conscience.
Yes.
Really might not be a value that someone has. But could you just stand by? Could you just be a bystander to someone doing that? So then it's really up to you if you're willing to take on that interaction that could be, one of conflict, or it could be one that elicits a compassion. And I think if you're, so say, going back to the example that you use, someone throws a bottle on the floor.
Right.
It's, they might not be thinking about the person who's going to have to.
No.
It's about, and again, that is why I always reach for those creative tools to try to inspire that empathy, because people can be listening along to a song that they're not in, but we're all. I feel that a lot of people are yearning to be recognised and seen.
Yes.
So they do place themselves at the centre of a lot of narratives, even fictional ones, as a way of, like you think about a song or an album that you've listened to for a long time. It's almost like that person has just been in your passenger seat while you've been driving through various moments in your life. I suppose you worked closely with Leonard Cohen, so I know that that was a voice that was has been in my atmosphere for a long time. So there's this, I can hear his voice and think of my mother, like he was there playing Scrabble with us or something. And so you can gain this kind of trust in an artist's voice, I suppose, or comfort or familiarity, and then maybe start listening to the lyrics and thinking about, thinking about where the places where they want to take you. So then as an artist, again, you can ask, where do you want to take people? And there are a lot of musicians and artists who make that kind of education part of their work, part of their songs, or they write songs specifically at different times to do that.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question. Where do you want to take someone? Where do I want to be taken? And that actually decides a lot of our answers for how we engage in our day-to-day life. Perhaps sometimes we don't feel like we can choose, but where do I want to be taken? It's a really great question. I love it. As I mentioned, we're doing these conversations and having these conversations leading up to International Women's Day, which is on Monday, because not only did I want to connect with my friends and women I admire and who inspire me, I also wanted to listen and learn about other women's experiences, creative process, eavesdrop a little bit on what path takes you there, and then also what you've experienced in the workplace. And something I'd love to check in with you about is what changes in creative industries or in any workplace would you like to see happening for women and girls?
I'd like to see some more genuine support between women. Raising each other constantly. Someone doesn't need to have worn it better. Is that correct grammar? But it's not. There's a place for everybody if we create it together. Just step out and open the circle, and someone else can step right in alongside. And I think when there are limited opportunities like there are, there's only so many albums that could, there's only so many gigs and so many albums that can come out in a year. So technically there is some competition, but there really doesn't need to be, or it can be separated. But I just love to see, women raising each other constantly in the same way. And I don't want them to have to, when I say raise each other, not doing this heavy lifting because men have pushed us back or pushed us down either. So that probably has to be managed in the same breath. And I'm lucky that I've worked with, in music, I've worked with some men that I think might be anomalies. They are champions of women in the workforce, and I'm really lucky to have found myself there in teams where it is majority women.
Wow.
But I also, again, don't like that, it's had to be under the wings of men who champion women, because I want us to be championing each other.
Yes.
And there's I found hostility mostly as sort of come from women, and it's territorial and it's primal. But the idea that no one's in competition, and outside of, the fun bits of like going for charts or something. But
yeah, charts aren't personal so much, but I really know what you mean about lifting each other up, but without doing the heavy lifting, just by nature of being a community. I remember one time I was collaborating with another woman, and there was a lot of tension and stress, and it was in my younger years, and I hadn't had that experience before in work. I'd had it in school, because I think everyone who's gone to school knows that feeling of competition and trying to be important in the community just as everyone else is. For me, I've never been the kind of person that I want to take over. I just want to connect. I want to feel part of it. I might not, when I get together with my school friends, sometimes they're all so clever. Sometimes I might not have anything to add in a moment, but I'm really glad to be part of the group, and eye contact. And I think eye contact for me is one of my most important connective tissues, because when I feel like I can look in someone's eye and I'm relaxed enough that I don't have to tense, I can just really let them see me, and I can let myself see them. And when I was in this situation in a musical group where there was a lot of tension with this other female artist, one day I did knock on her dressing room door, and I said, listen, I just want to come in and check in with you on something. And I was desperately nervous, but I felt I have to communicate this message. And I said, I can never take away your gift and your offering to the universe. It's so unique, it's so special. And also, I'm here and I want to contribute my offering in my own way, and that doesn't overlap. And I love that analogy of, you have a dark room and you put one light bulb in there, and then you put another light bulb in there. Well, it's just a brighter room. One light bulb doesn't make the other light bulb less. And I think that something I'd love to ask you is, where does this narrative of threat or territorialism or primal, I like the word primal, because I definitely feel that primal energy sometimes, and this emotional energy that isn't about thinking strategically, but how can we be primal and be connected and not be threatened by each other, but share in this space? What's your thought on that?
Knowing there's enough for everyone, or letting go of the idea that just to go with your analogy, but letting go of this idea that I'm the only globe in the room, and being the only globe in the room is what makes me powerful and makes me bright. Because I think it's when you're working closely with someone who has a lot of public admiration, everybody wants to be their most special person. And I think that's also a primal thing. It's a funny social response. Yeah. So the idea of being somebody else working closely with that person, it's a threat to this construct of our own identity, which keeps us safe. But the light bulb analogy, it just makes the room brighter. Yeah. But again, someone might be holding on to the idea that their value is being the only one. And it's just perhaps, and in my experience, it takes it takes time.
Yeah.
And it also takes, and it shouldn't. I feel like it's such a waste of time to have to go. I've been in those, group situations where I feel it is absolutely reminiscent of high school or even primary school, but it's that bullying and it is that territory. But and so when something is primal, that's where we have to become especially conscious of overriding that and make these decisions that I don't want to be a woman that puts another woman down.
No.
Because I'm enough. I have enough. I have enough in my life, in myself. And if I'm to get something, and it's usually in response to admiration that people want that. And it comes to security. It's how we construct our identities. If it's around, let go of the idea of wanting to be the only bulb in the room, only light in the room. Or maybe no one wants to let go of it, and they're just people that, unfortunately we won't shine, we won't stand next to, because we need to keep shining ourselves.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I found it hard I interrupted you.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, a natural response can be to make somebody else feel comfortable, especially if you can't stand that tension or can't stand that feeling of being bullied. Just like my puppy, walking into the band room and just making yourself smaller, hunching your shoulders, speaking softer, being more apologetic for being present. And that is also a survival mode. And we also should make a decision not to do that, to hold our ground and remember why we are where we are, and to question it constantly and reflect on it. And we might, if we are staying open to that, we might find ourselves also being able to empathise with the person who is feeling territorial, the person we're sort of speaking hypothetically about. I'm sure there are times where we could flicker and feel that too.
Yeah. I definitely feel insecurity in different scenarios. But now I'm a bit more conscious in my body when I'm feeling insecure, instead of trying to get some kind of stability from something outside of myself, be it have a drink or eat something that I think will comfort me, or, as you said, I'm always aware of the hunching shoulders. I'm now conscious, wow, I'm feeling insecure, and asking myself the question, what is happening for me in this space? Why am I feeling insecure? And how can I come back to the center of why I'm here and the value of what my purpose is here, and to honor that? What can I channel in this space that contributes to this overall picture? And if it is to be quiet, then that's that. I don't have to be hunched, which I struggle with, and I'm always aware of not hunching. But I ask myself these kind of questions now when I'm insecure. And I've noticed sometimes if I feel threatened by another person, sometimes it's because I'd love to be creating what they're creating. And then I think, wow, okay, if I feel threatened, therefore, how about I celebrate them and celebrate it in myself, that I obviously have more to do. I have more to contribute, and that's okay. And to know that I don't need to do anything. This doing conditioning, I don't think is always helpful. To just be present, be with the energy that's there. And that's something I've been aware of. Do you notice in yourself when you feel uncomfortable or something isn't quite right in a space? What do you pull from your toolbox? What sharp tool do you reach for, or blunt tool, depending?
I think it's it's a bit broad because it would vary, but if I'm not comfortable somewhere, my response is usually to leave there. But it's not as though that takes it off my mind. I want to.
Right.
I try to work out what it was that I felt uncomfortable with. And my first thing is, it's usually in response to a situation, and then I want to know what the situation brought out in me. So if we're still speaking about feeling like we've stepped into the bullying ring with other women, it's not. That's something I step away from it. I usually try to soften things and find and again, understanding that everybody is trying to feel safe and trying to feel loved and trying to feel relevant, and cross-checking that I didn't do anything to sabotage that in somebody else.
Wow.
If I didn't speak quickly and without any filtration. So I make sure that everything that I had said, I really meant. And if I said something silly or the first thing I do is cross-check to make sure that I hadn't done anything wrong by my own standards. And if I have, I want to address it.
Yes.
But that's also, I like being in control. So that's, if I can't control what someone else is doing, because that's where you're never going to succeed. So if I can do better, if I find myself in an awful situation, the first thing I do is, okay, what did I do to get myself here?
Yeah.
What can I do to undo it? What can I do to make them feel better? Because it comes back to the thread throughout this conversation. It's just that the thought of somebody else suffering is unbearable.
Wow.
Yeah. But also the idea of injustice is outrageous. So
yeah.
I also feel a fury if someone is being exclusive or unkind or, not caring for any reason. And I experience it a lot, in your own circle, in, professional circles, in band rooms or whatever, people
Yes.
trying to territory aside, or not mark their territory, but assert their territory.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean with that. And
you can see why, why someone would feel unsure or threatened or assume that it's their role to be protective of the person around, and it's underestimating the person around that they're trying to protect too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really insightful, because it's not and it's not necessarily easy to always understand, because just like what you said, to give someone the benefit of the doubt that they're doing their best, but it's not always straightforward to navigate what to do, I find, because I always want to respect someone, but I want to be authentic in my own feeling. And something I've been exploring more and more is just talking with someone and asking them if they're okay, and acknowledging them, and always being aware that I'm coming from a place of respect for myself and for them, because you never know what might have happened for them in their past or their childhood, and it's not easy to navigate, I find.
It's important to have that compassion and dedication to trying to understand why someone operates the way they do. But they're also, but that doesn't mean that you owe them your own. You don't owe them your own. That shouldn't come at the cost of your experience when you're around them as such. It doesn't owe them. That doesn't grant them the right to bully you or behave in a way that's unkind or even unprofessional at times. So it's knowing what you're willing to. Having that compassion and having that empathy can help you understand why something's going on and feeling that. But you don't also owe all of yourself to somebody else's. We've got a lot. We don't. We're not there to be someone else's punching bag while they work it out either.
Really
It's
good
okay
analogy.
and not try to fix it. It's okay to understand and say that person is going through this, they're going through that. I don't want to add to that. I wish I could take that away from them. I wish I could make them feel better. And you can attempt it, but you can't get too sidetracked either at every interaction it's not helpful really to your own resources of energy. And, you don't want to carry on that pattern of being hurt and needing to bully either.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, because if you engage so much with it, are you being held by it more?
Yeah, you're giving command to that kind of, you don't want to respond to bad behaviour either, in a way. So walking away is a response. It's a huge response. Mm-hmm. Sometimes necessary.
Yes.
But you can also, lead by, you can demonstrate how you would do it and be kind, but not available for that kind of bullshit, especially after especially after a certain point, and especially after probably going into the natural responses, which are, for mine, much like my puppy, is to come in soft and make myself a bit smaller, and I've sort of make jokes that are self-deprecating to try to disarm that kind of assumed threat. But I know, but it's not a fair response. It's not being fair on yourself for or on as an example. It's just not. It's not constructive. Sort of dismantling that kind of dynamic, really.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that's something I have done in the past. I've tried to change my behavior to, what would be the word? Maybe disarm the tension, but then that's I really relate to what you're saying, because there's a decision in there somewhere, isn't there, where you go, actually, I can still be really present and not feed into it, but also be aware of contributing positively, but not engaging in it. It's really interesting. Do you think that, in your experience, that can happen with men and women?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, what we're talking about is also women becoming territorial around men, and men becoming competitive around men, and it's sort of centered around men. So it brings back to what I was saying before is, don't react or respond to men in that way, and focus on each other. Mm-hmm. Focus on looking after and lifting each other.
Yeah.
And not let the sort of archaic ideas of, not archaic, but not let we're all together in these rooms for social reasons, work, but social, like, it's society that's brought us there. So there is, but we're still human. We're still these creatures that have these primal tendencies. But when we feel them rising, understand them a bit better and know how to protect each other and ourselves from it. And staying kind, or however you want to be. Not everybody gives a fuck about being kind. They want to be strong. None. I think you can do both, but sometimes that's just the way to mitigate my own anxiety at the end of the day, or at 3 a.m. when it mostly rears beastly head, is to have I been kind? Could I have been kinder? And that's or honest, honest and kind. They're the two pillars that keep me knowing I've done my best. So I always revert back to that as a guide. And sometimes learning to be kindest to myself as well, which is like stepping out of a situation.
Yes.
Is the kindest thing.
It is the kindest thing, because if one is in an environment where they're having to compromise themselves, they're not being their authentic self, and therefore it makes much more sense to disengage than to be present only in part. That in itself feels not only disrespectful to oneself, but to whatever one is working on. And that's something I'm really learning, because my tendency is always to try and find a way and try and find a common ground. But the common word is try, and try is not helpful, if you know what I mean.
Well, quite a while ago, I took trying out of my vocabulary when I was speaking in first person, and especially in aspirational tone. So I'm doing it, and hopefully each time I do it, I'll do better. But I'm doing it. Yeah, it's trying feels like it's postponing.
Great. Goodbye, try. I also let go of should. Should is a word. No thanks. I could do it, but if I don't do it, then there's no shoulds. I just didn't do it. Yeah. How do you feel when you're onto something creatively exciting? And how do you support that feeling, support that process that you're in?
How do I feel when I'm doing something exciting?
Yeah.
How do I support?
Yeah, when you get that feeling that this is really something special, where does it come from? In your body or your psyche, your mind, your spirit? Oh, I've lost you here. Oh, I've lost some volume. I'm not sure why. Oh. Can you hear me, Siân? Ah. I'm not sure what's happening, but sorry, folks. Just lost a little bit of volume. Hello, hello. Can everyone still hear Siân or hear what we're saying? Let us know. Let's have a little go here. Hear Web, but not Darling, Dave says. Okay. Okay, there's something going on with the internet. The time. Okay. Okay, great. No worries. Well, thank you so much, Siân. Yeah. Shall we close now, do you think? Shall we close now? Gonna text me. I'll just say I know that there's been some wonderful people connecting and joining and making comments. Thank you, Wally. Wally said hi. Thanks for joining us today. Estelle joined us. Thank you. Destin. Hi, Destin. Really lovely to see everyone online today. Compose Studios in Puglia. Wonderful to see you guys. And Milan Poetry, as always, just awesome to see you. Thank you so much for everyone on Facebook and YouTube for joining. Frank and Mike, BJ, Jane, Christine, David, Emma, Graham, thank you very much. It's wonderful to see you. And it's been so insightful talking with Siân tonight, because I think Siân's really brought up a lot of strong and current themes that it takes guts to talk about this stuff, so I really value that. Okay, so I've got your little note here, Siân. You've got a call come through, and we're going to wrap this up now. Thank you, France, for your kind comments. And if there's anyone that would like to get in touch with Siân or reach out, is the best way, give me a thumbs up, is the best way through your Instagram? Okay. Off you go. Okay, darling. Great to see you. Thank you very much, everyone. Warmest wishes to you all, and thanks for joining tonight. Thank you to Siân Darling. Cheers, guys. Bye.